What's up? What's up? You know what time it is. We're back. And I'm back. It's the Republic of Rants Rant channel. I want to welcome everybody back. All my residents of the Republic of Rants. If you're not a resident, hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell icon like it's July 1776 so you can get the new updates on your mobile devices, on your laptop, your iPad, your PC, whatever type of device you have. You can get the newest updates to the newest rants, the latest rants. So let's just jump right into it. I know you hear the background music. That's that old school Michael Jackson, Remember the Time, just a remix version, you know. And the music, the background music is actually fitting and it correlates to the topic at hand. Now, I know you see this picture on the screen of the Queen Nerfertiti, you know, the Egyptian queen, Mother Nerfertiti. And that's what we're talking about today. So, on the Today Show, I believe it was on Monday, on the Today Show, a guy by the name of Josh Gates, who is a part of the TV show Expedition Unknown. And I guess they go around and they, you know, they research ancient civilizations and they talk about the culture and the people of those civilizations, the rulers, you know, etc., etc. So he is on the Today Show and he's promoting his new special, his new documentary about Queen Nerfertiti. So him and his team and his crew, they get together and they decide between DNA and whatever Dr. Frankenstein lab they came up with. They said they wanted to unveil their vision, their image of what Queen Nerfertiti looked like. Now that's kind of ironic, seeing that we already have a sculpture, a bust of actually what she looked like, because the Egyptians actually made it about 4,500 years ago. So he's on this TV show and he reveals this bust, this pseudo bust of Queen Nerfertiti, and the image looks like a white woman that I might see at Whole Foods somewhere. And I'm thinking, what the hell is this dude talking about? Like, this shit is utterly ridiculous. There's already a bust of the queen. That's the woman on the right in the picture. The woman on the left is this pseudo bust, this pseudo image of what Queen Nerfertiti would look like in Josh Gates and his Dr. Frankenstein's eyes. So I'm thinking, why are you trying to push this narrative? What the hell are you doing? We already have a perfectly good image of what the queen looked like. Now, the image on the right is of Nefertiti. That was taken probably about her bust was discovered in 1912 in Amarna, Egypt. So that was about 4,500 years ago. I mean, pretty much, you know. So her image is a little faded. This is the woman on the right, the actual sculpture on the right. So just imagine when the sculpture was made, it was a darker image, it was fresher paint, so darker image. The woman on the left is real fair-skinned, which is not indigenous to the land in Africa. If you know anything about geography, dark-skinned melanoid people were from those lands in Egypt. Alright? The woman on the left looked like she could be from Santa Monica, somewhere out there by the beach. Orange County somewhere. So, as I'm watching this, and there's a link in the description box, you can tap the link and you can see what I'm talking about if you don't know. As I'm watching this, I notice one of the female hosts, her name is Hoda Kotub or Khatub. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, so I apologize. But she is actually an Egyptian American. She's, you know, comes from the ancestry of Egypt, you know, so she's an African woman. And her facial expression when the man pulls back the curtain, like, she looked like, what the hell is this? And it's only for a quick second, you know what I'm saying? It's like a real quick shot, because then the camera goes and pans on the sculpture and it zooms right in on the face, you know? It zooms in on the actual sculpture that they're trying to unveil. But if you catch that quick glimpse, she's looking like, what the hell? I'm darker than her, and I'm actually come from Egyptian ancestry. So what the hell are you talking about, Josh Gates? And that goes to my point. It's almost like the mainstream is trying to push this narrative that Egyptians were white people when they weren't. Like I said before, the image on the right on the screen is the actual image of what the sculpture looked like that was retrieved by the German scientists, the German archaeologists, the German historians. That actual sculpture, that actual bust of Queen Nefertiti sits in a museum in Germany. So if you want to go to Germany and go look at the actual museum, you'll be able to see the bust, and you'll be able to see different pigmentations. One, in my opinion, Egyptians probably had more of the phenotype, which means your facial structure, of like Ethiopians. Because sometimes the Ethiopian people, they'll have a more slender nose, but very dark skin and more kinkier hair. But the phenotype, they won't have necessarily the big Nubian lips like you see in other parts of Africa. But nonetheless, they are African people, very melanoid, dark-skinned people. As I said before, the woman on the right is the actual statue, the actual bust. So just think of a painting or of something that you paint, a house. It loses its color, it loses its luster over years. Now imagine thousands and thousands of years in heat, in the dirt, being transported here and there. It's going to lose some of its color. As you can see on the right, the statue has a broken ear, it missed an eye, there's chips in the skin, so you know it hasn't been handled with the best care for a full preservation type of, presentation. They didn't make it to be preserved so somebody could put it on display. They made it in that woman's image, so it wasn't meant to last and be put on display for the world. So just imagine in your mind that sculpture being fully painted, paint, full luster. It's going to be of a darker woman, and the pigmentation is going to be that of a darker pigment. Now, if you don't know about Nefertiti, she was a queen. She was married to the pharaoh Akhenaten. They ruled from about 1353 to 1336. She's a stepmother to King Tut, and that's what most archaeologists and Egyptologists kind of believe. Historians believe she was a stepmother to King Tut. So this was a pretty significant woman who had a pretty significant role. So she was not just some run-of-the-mill wife. Nah, she was a down sister. You know what I'm saying? She was a down African queen. And that's why they've never made a movie about Queen Nefertiti. They made a movie about Cleopatra, right? They knew she was a woman of mixed descent, not the full pigmentation of an African woman. There are no real paintings or real depictions or sculptures or busts of Cleopatra. So you can say there is no image, so our image is what Cleopatra looked like, right? That's why they've made movies with Liz Taylor and different actresses playing Cleopatra and the love story of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. But Queen Nefertiti had just as much power, and with the dynamic of being the stepmother of King Tut and the wife of one of the greatest pharaohs ever, Akhenaten, you would think they would have made a movie by now about a woman who had such significance in her civilization at the time. But they never have. And why haven't they? That's because in order to make a movie and in order to cast a white woman as Queen Nefertiti, that goes against actual proof. So you can argue one thing if you don't have proof. People can believe certain things, but when you put something in their face, then that's harder to sell. Like those movies, The Gods of Egypt, and the other Egyptian movie that came out shortly after that. Those movies were terrible flops in the box office. Those movies flopped because the public can only believe so many lies. Nobody's going to believe that a white European man is the same color as the Egyptian pharaoh Ramses, or that Batman is the same pigmentation as Moses. Who the hell is going to believe that shit? Nobody. That's why those were tremendous flops at the box office. Okay? Now they put in the second Egyptian movie, they had flying dragons and all type of ridiculous shit. They had Jaime Lannister from the Game of Thrones playing an Egyptian pharaoh. Now that's a white man from Europe through and through. Ain't no two ways about it. That's why that was a flop, because we said we can accept some bullshit, but we just can't accept a whole hour and a half, 2 hours of bullshit. And whenever you make a movie about the Egyptians, people want historical context to be somewhat true. Now, movies are, no, it's a movie. So when you make something of historical context, we know you're selling a movie, right? So you're not going to get everything 100% accurate, because your job is to sell a movie. This is a motion picture, and we're trying to make some money here. So we understand that it's a business. So most historical films, you want to get about 70-75% of the information of the things being depicted in the motion picture. You want to get about 75% of those accurate. But to have a white man playing Moses and a white man playing Ramses, you already losing half your audience right there. That's why those were tremendous flops. And that's why you've never seen a movie being made or been made about Queen Nefertiti. And my guess, my suggestion, with this new ridiculous bust or this ridiculous image that they Dr. Frankensteined up somewhere, they're going to try to make a movie now about the Queen Mother Nefertiti. And they're going to try to say, look, this is what our DNA researchers found, that she was a woman of light pigmentation, even though her bust, her statue that sits in the museum in Germany, goes against that. It goes against the image on the left with the image on the right. They contrast. You can't say this is Nefertiti and you've been telling us this for over 100 years, and then you come out and say, well, our researchers through DNA, we put together in what we think would be the image of Nefertiti. Well, who the fuck is the woman on the right then? You've been telling me for 100 years this is what the woman on the right looked like. Look at her nose. She has a more broader, more wider nose. And that's indigenous to Africa. That's why lions and animals like that and black people have more broader noses, because you have to release that hot air coming out of your brain, coming out of your head. That's why the hair, black people's hair, African melanoid people's hair curls up, because you want that heat off the back of your neck. That's why Europeans have more slender noses, more broad noses, and their hair grows down to keep the back of the neck and the back of the spine warm. They want to keep that air inside because it's cold in Europe. That's why their noses are more slender. The image on the right of Nefertiti's statue, the real image, her nose, she doesn't have a very big nose, but it's wide. It goes with the geography of the land. And that's what I'm talking about. Pay attention. You got to know how to read between the lines and read what they're trying to do. They really want to make a movie about Nefertiti, but they just couldn't say, well, this is in history books, this image, this iconic image of this pharaoh queen. How can we make this white? How can we sell the public on a white actress? Well, we can just say, hey, our scientists, our DNA researchers came and we discovered through testing, through our laboratories, and now we have this real image of what she might have looked like, a white woman shopping in Whole Foods on a Sunday morning. That shit's ridiculous. So I just wanted to just rant a little bit about this silliness. This shit is silliness. You have an actual woman on the show who is of Egypt, who is of Egyptian ancestry and background, whose parents are Egyptian. And she is darker than the image you gave me. Now, with all the modern technology and the buildings and the air conditioning and the housing, you're not in sun like you were 4,000 years ago. They didn't have air conditioning. They didn't have buildings like that. They didn't have cars where you could ride in the car and not have to face the sweltering sun beaming down on you. No. So the image on the left is just not believable when you're looking at geography. Geography does not lie.